To a different kind of rendition. This is what I call the viewpoint of tycoons, of boxing tycoons. All right, this is what I call this is what I call viewpoints of a tycoon because I think most fans can't see, they can't see what I can see. I'm not a boxing tycoon, but we examining how, these guys like Bob Arum in particular today.
Right.
Like Bob Arum and, Al Haymans and the promoters, we examining their viewpoint.
Right.
And this is a key point right here because I think people get so wrapped into how they feel that a lot of times they can miss some real game, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like as everybody knows, like about me, I'm on the Mayweather Heyman side. You know what I'm saying? That's the side I agree with and I'm for it, right? I'm not a
Sound like a campaign.
Yeah, I'm not a but here's the thing, I am not so much in my head, or stuck up my ass that I can't see how I can't learn from a Bob Arum or see their aspects.
Right.
And it's an interesting thing. Like I might not agree with your slant, but I could see the same thing that you're seeing. So we're going to check this out, man. We're going to do something different right here. And we're going to go over this Bob Arum interview, which happened 6 years ago. So let's see the agendas and how things played out and everything that Bob Arum was saying. This happened 6 years ago before
Cotto
and Pacquiao. So
I was in Vegas for that fight.
Yeah, and this is when the Mayweather was and Pacquiao fight was just steaming. It was just steaming.
Right.
Ariel Helwani for fanhouse.com. Maybe the winner of the Mayweather Marquez fight.
And to do a big event.
Okay.
And I can't wait, and we're going to do it next year.
Really? Is that the plan?
That's the plan.
Maybe the winner of the Mayweather Marquez fight fighting the winner of this fight?
I don't think so. But certainly a big fight is going to happen next year, and it will happen at Yankee Stadium.
Do you think that those fighting the winner of this fight?
I don't think so. Do a big event. And I can't wait, and we're going to do it next year.
Really? Is that the plan?
That's the plan.
Maybe the winner of the Mayweather Marquez fight fighting the winner of this fight?
I don't think so. But certainly a big fight is going to happen next year, and it will happen at Yankee Stadium.
Do you think that those two winners will face off, or is there just too many hurdles involved?
I really can't tell. I mean, let's see who wins, and then we'll see. Marquez is more predictable than Mayweather. So if Manny wins and Marquez wins, the drum beats will roll for a Manny Marquez fight, which would be a real possibility. If Mayweather wins against either of these guys, he's just a problem and a head case, and it'd be very, very difficult to put a match together.
I'd like to get your take on something a good friend of yours, UFC President Dana White, said recently. He said, no one wants to see Mayweather fight Marquez. People want to see Pacquiao fight Mayweather. And as you know, boxing and UFC are going head-to-head next weekend. UFC 103 against the Mayweather fight. Do you think at some point boxing is going to have to make a fight like that, and because of the competition from MMA and more specifically the UFC, have to give the fans the fights involving these megastars?
Well, Pacquiao and Cotto is the best fight that can be made from a action standpoint. Mayweather is a tremendous talent. The real problem with Mayweather is, we used to call it years ago, a fighter who stinks his opponent out. He doesn't engage. He's a great defensive fighter. People don't want to spend money watching a defensive fighter. That's the problem. Now, it may very well be that a Pacquiao-Mayweather fight can be built up and people can talk about it. But in my heart and heart, I know this will be like a hunter running around a ring looking for a deer. And that's not boxing. I mean, Mayweather will not engage his opponent. And that makes a stinking fight. And if people are being asked to spend $50 to watch it on pay-per-view, I can see they would have a reluctance. Now, when true, he did big numbers when he fought Oscar, but it was Oscar and he conned the people. I'm going to go out and I'm going to knock him out. People know Mayweather now. They know the son of a gun doesn't fight. He fights scared. Now, that's okay. I don't want to demean it. If this was like a pitcher, who had a great curveball and struck everybody out so there was no action, it would be great. But he's a boxer and he has to entertain. And Mayweather does not entertain. Outside the ring, yeah, he shoots up cars. He does other things like that, and he entertains. But in the ring, he's not an entertaining fighter.
So do you think that fight will bomb on pay-per-view, the Mayweather fight?
I have no idea how the fight is going to do on pay-per-view. I have no idea whether the UFC fight that Dana's putting on.
All right, we're gonna stop right there. We're gonna continue some more though. But I think here was a lot said right there. Right there, he told you right off bat. He told you that fight wasn't gonna happen until 6 years later. He said, it can get people talking and they can do numbers years later, but right now we have other fights to make. So he was already telling you these guys got to win.
Right.
Because if you look at it, it took 6 years. This is how they do things too. It took 6 years to make that $1 billion fight. Because what Mayweather made like $100 million or maybe even $200 million. If one guy's making that much money himself, then the fight or you had to have done $1 billion.
Easy.
So that was another thing too. Also, I think he was talking about agendas when he was talking about because when it's interesting too, fights set a certain tone.
Right.
After certain fights happen, and he kind of was right when he said because the fight was underwhelming after it happened. Right. That was his slant, but he was also talking about agendas. And the agendas is that, these networks and stuff are pushing for the knockout. He was talking about that without talking about it because that was the agenda he was promoting at the same time.
Right.
So, I just think it was a lot right there. Right there in that interview, he told you in so many words this fight wasn't going to happen until 6 years from now.
Yeah, I totally agree. He told us a lot. You can look at the way he curved his conversation about the fight itself. He took what he knows as far as Floyd's style and used it against him. You won't engage, you won't fight. Well, he knew that that's Floyd's fight. So I'll paint this picture so that we don't have to engage into this actual event. You know what I'm saying? I'll curve the narrative to say, okay, well, we don't want to put on this fight right now because he's not gonna fight. The fans don't want to see that X, Y, and Z when really it was one of the fights that we, everybody know we wanted to see. And he's a master at making events bigger and waiting for the right timing to make the event. He's a master at it.
And manufacturing it too,
right,
as well. And then even when the guy got to him, he was like, well, so you don't think he can make the fight can sell, people will buy it? And he said, well, I'm not going to talk about that because of course he knows it can sell. But then I also think even though he can sell, that's not the kind of, as far as agenda-wise, that's not the kind of fight that they want.
No, but of course not, right? But that goes further into what you just said as far as when you preference this whole topic.
Right.
You were talking about I can see things that the average fan can't see. Right. See, what Bob Arum is a boxing promoter. Right. It means he talks to the media about certain fights. He knows how to engage with the media. He has those connections, so forth and so on. So when talking about that event, he just curved the narrative to say why he didn't want his fighter to be in that event, but it's because Manny Pacquiao and those fighters that he's naming, Marquez, they are his fighters.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So he doesn't want to put a fighter that he used to have and counterpult his career.
Right.
And while lowering his cash, in the process.
But it's also about the agenda that the networks want too, which is like the more knockout fights.
But who puts that out there?
Oh yeah, he does. And they're all a part. Yeah, it's all a part of one engine.
Right.
And like when he even brought up, if it'd be different if it was a pitcher had just struck somebody out, but this is boxing. So he was already saying, this is the agenda we want, no matter what the slant is, because Mayweather, he has been in action fights, but that was his slant he was putting on it. Now let's watch some more. All right. Let's see here.
Will hurt it. For me, I look at the UFC audience and the boxing audience as being two different audiences entirely. Our audience in boxing is ethnic, Hispanic, Filipino, Puerto Rican, Mexican, and the hardcore boxing fan who can't watch, like me, can't watch UFC. UFC are a bunch of skinhead white guys watching people in the ring who are also look like skinhead white guys.
Well, I take offense to that just for someone who covers the sport. I'm not a skinhead. I'm actually a Jew. I'm not a white. I'm not a white guy. So nothing like that.
Yeah, well,
but you got a skinhead.
And you don't have any tattoos.
No tattoos, and a lot of people I know in MMA don't have tattoos.
Yeah, well,
as well.
90% of the people in the audience wear tattoos. I don't care. That's up to them. But those aren't people that would have any interest at any time in boxing. They wouldn't. They wouldn't. The only guy they might want to see is Kelly Pavlik.
I think that we disagree on that. Let's quickly switch gears here for a second.
Oh, man. Bob, I'm talking shit.
Hey, shout out to Bob Arum. It just shows the level of immunity that he has. Let somebody we always throw Floyd name out there. I want to use somebody else, maybe even Bernard Hopkins. He said some controversial things before. But if any one of those guys would have said something like that, man, we looking at some real backlash. ESPN is, airing it. He got to come with some type of apology. Bob Arum don't got to apologize to nobody.
Yeah, he don't. Yeah, I know Skip and Stephen A. Not even, they say I have most respect for Bob Arum. That's what they say. But regardless of how somebody might feel or them getting offended, this man is not a fool. He's not an idiot, man. So.
No, he's not.
So
if you want to look deeper into it, and I think the difference in boxing in MMA or the UFC, if you want to just narrow it down, what you have in boxing that can't be replaced is nationalism, pride in your nation.
Well, even cut more to the chase. And Bob Arum said it in his way, but a lot of people believe not in my opinion, but they believe that the UFC was set up so you could have a white champion. So that's where the skinhead reference is.
Right, but again, that goes
and it was funny, though, the guy didn't have no tattoos, but he's bald-headed.
Right.
So I take offense to that, but you got a skinhead.
Right, and he said, that's his audience. That's who he probably gets more interviews with, is those guys as well. So he's trying to just keep his core audience cool. Like, hey, I said something, right? But again, that goes to nationalism, right? That goes to pride. See, what it is boxing and fighting in general has a very prideful and pride with your culture, your nation, where you from, who you are. That's what boxing taps into. That's why you got your Puerto Rican and Mexican, rivalries. Whoever they are, they just put it a part of this rivalry. They go with that narrative. So things like that. Whereas in boxing, you don't have a great white champion. If they are, they're not from America. And Dana White used to be a part of boxing, so he's seen a void. And like, okay, well, cool. This is something that we can tap into,
and it's like, I mean, come on, man, like it's not calling Dana White racist or anything, but you don't think he has a preference for white fighters?
Well, I mean, you preference with yourself with who's around you and who you are, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that's all good. And it's not just white guys that's in the UFC. There's guys from other countries and Brazil, a whole bunch of different places, Puerto Rico.
But you could tell like his conversation is that they set up MMA for the white guys. That's conversation.
Well, it's owned by the white guy. Yeah, right.
And from a Bob Arum standpoint, marketing wise, that's what he's looking at.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly.
That's what he's looking at.
But again, you can't see what I can see. So that's where he's coming from. Is he understands where they're marketing, what the whole foundation of the company is, and that's what he's talking about. He's talking about
agendas,
right? That's exactly what he's talking about. So he's speaking to that. Right. So please don't get offended by Bob Arum's comments. He's coming from a 60, 70, 80-year-old man.
I mean,
who's been around boxing forever.
You can get offended by him, but learn from him too. Learn behind the words and see what he's saying from a millionaire standpoint. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that's manufacturing big events. What is he? Don't get insulted by the ethics and things like that. What is he really saying?
Right.
Because this is an intelligent man.
No, he's digging deeper than what the average person. See, on the surface, it just sounds like rhetoric, right? It sounds like old person, rhetoric. As in he's comparing the errors, right? In my era, it was like this. Yeah, the same. Young man, old man, kind of. Because UFC is predominantly like a young man sport, right? So we look at that like that's the new thing. When he's looking at it deeper, he's looking at it from a promotional standpoint.
He's actually seeing the future.
He's seeing the whole landscape.
Right. And then what he's not saying too, because he was we're gonna get a little more into it. That'll be like our last little cut of it. But USC will make a transition because when he brought up the ethnicity and he didn't mention black, that was kind of offensive. But I was black. We're not invisible, Bob Arum. But now, when he was mentioning the ethnicities, it's like what somebody says without saying. Eventually, that's going to transition off into the UFC. But let's finish up this, and then we get to the last segment. All right, let's see.
Concerned at all with and do you think, I mean, smiling, or I don't know if you're smiling at him, but it seems like a pretty brash thing to say about the sport. I mean, really, if they're two separate, why even take the shot?
Because for me and people like me, it is not something that they ever care to see. They've watched it. It's horrible. Guys rolling around like homosexuals on the ground. I mean, it is not a sport that shows great talent. The guys who throw punches can't throw a punch to save their ass. When the punches land, the guys have no chins. These are not like boxers. They are not trained like boxers.
But can you really say that about a sport that's generating 1.7 million pay-per-views for UFC 100 and getting over a million for UFC 101? I mean, clearly, unless everyone is mistaken and everyone thinks that this is a disgusting sport, something's wrong with our society, right?
Well, something's wrong with your math because there ain't no way that a pay-per-view generated anything like the numbers that you gave me and that they put out. I know what the numbers are.
What did they do?
The numbers were south of 1 million.
For 100?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
So they're off by 700 or so thousand?
Who's to check? They're not a public company. Who's to check?
All right, let's quickly switch gears here for a second because I think we'll disagree on this for a while. Are you concerned at all with the controversy around where Manny Pacquiao...
Yeah, that was it for that one. Okay. Now, There's a lot like that. That last part is kind of what I want to get into. We can get into some more of what he said before that, but
I'm rolling around like
yeah.
now be offended by that, I guess, if you choose to.
But when the guy, the guy tried, he tried to tell him the numbers. And he tried, he tried to son Bob Arum. Bob Arum son him. Yeah, because Bob Arum plays those games.
Yeah, you can't play that game with Bob.
and he said, those are not the numbers, and who's the check?
That was it.
They're not a
Checkmate.
public company. Yeah, it was like checkmate. He didn't see that. That's the thing too. Like with the, comparing UFC with boxing. They have a fan base, and he talked about that. Right, but that's their fan base. It's not really worldwide. Like the stuff Bob Arum was talking about was worldwide. And then when he was saying like they're not trained like boxers are, a lot of them do they sport from when they 7 and 8, years old, man, on up until they pros. So boxers are really honed in on their craft. UFC guys are kind of figuring out. You have some dudes that might do karate, some dudes that might wrestle, some dudes that might have boxed. But, to put all that together is another thing. And, where the UFC guys come up short is they might fight a karate dude, might fight a wrestler, but he ain't prepared for a wrestler. A wrestler might fight a boxer, so he don't know how to handle it, getting hit, and they wind up losing. Whereas in boxing, you have an amateur system and where you fight a gang of fights and you pretty much have seen every style by the time you get to the pros.
True.
So I think it was a lot Bob Arum was saying right there.
Right. He's coming from it from a striker standpoint. If I'm looking at the average MMA fight for strictly striking, and I'm very stout. If I'm very technical, if I'm nitpicking, it would be very hard for me to watch that sport. If it's just sticking there. But beyond that, if you're, I studied jiu-jitsu for a number of years, so it just opened my eyes to different styles, different, techniques, whatnot. So my eye and what I like is a little bit more vast than, if I was just strictly a boxing head. You know what I mean? So Bob, from that standpoint, I understand where Bob is coming from. It's just not something that you would want to watch if that's where if that's what your background is.
See, here's the thing too, like from why I kind of pulled away from UFC, but I used to watch not UFC but MMA because I watched Strikeforce, I watched Pride, and I watched UFC. Is that and I love Pride. I think there was a lot of skill in Pride, but is that sometimes what a fight can turn into is a low-budget wrestling match where the guys cancel each other out, And Bob Arum said it differently, but sometimes it could turn into a subpar striking match, So, but, it's rare where you might have a talent like Jacare, that can just, he's a takedown dude, and he can just ease in, his takedowns are smooth. But say some of his fights, he'd have fought another takedown dude, and it's just been kind of like a stalemate.
Right.
Guys rolling around.
Right.
Like Bob Arum was saying it. Right. And I kind of like pulled away from that. Right. But I think, I think guys in the UFC will get better. They will get better.
I think guys are trained. I think that, well, I know for a fact I have a cousin who trained for a number of years and a cousin who's been competitive for a number of years. So, the younger kids are in the gym, they're training, they're doing all sorts of different things and training in different, aspects, different things. So I think that as the years go on, they will get better. But I still don't, I just still don't see that. I don't think that the striking will get too much better than what we've seen as far as just the hands. Because boxers it takes some time to hone that skill, that you can't just solely focus on striking with the hands. You have to focus on other things if you're in MMA.
Well, I think if you look at somebody like Anderson Silva, or even Machida, especially Silva, man. Like I think he was like your complete mixed martial artist.
I'll give him that.
Takedowns, ground attack.
I'll give him that.
And he's won in all facets, and he's got great strike game.
Yeah.
From feet to his hands. I mean, you know, there'd be fights where he needed a submission to beat a dude.
Yeah,
and he submitted him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Shout out to Anderson
shout
Silva.
out.
He's definitely one of my favorite fighters of all time, and that's in any sport.
GSP too.
Yeah, GSP not as
He's
much.
not as good a striker as Anderson.
But I'll give him his just due.
Jones is going there.
Jones definitely
because he got elbows and feet.
But I
his
think,
striking is punching.
Now somebody who gets overlooked a lot for their striking is what's the Russian guy that he fought? I forget his name, man. The tall Russian guy, whoever watching this, y'all know is
that Jones.
Yeah.
Oh, you talking about with the beard?
Yeah.
Oh, the guy that's giving him problems.
I haven't seen him since, man. And I think dude is a hell of a fighter.
Gustafsson.
Yeah, something like that. His hands is excellent. Now, see, that's what, as far as a boxer, you know what I'm saying? Like fighters like Holly Holmes, we can respect her. And Gustav, I forgot his name, man. I will know it next time, I promise. And shot you out next time.
He looked like an American. He looked like an American
man.
White boy too.
I like him. And you know,
he looked like he's from Arkansas.
See, but that's the thing, you know, we get kind of typecast into only liking a certain, you know, group of fighters or certain style.
I like Gustafsson.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But we can appreciate whoever you are. We can appreciate when you're a scientist at what you do.
Right,
you know, we give props when props is due. Like Manny, give Manny props. You know what I'm saying? Give
Fedor was good too.
Fedor,
I think he got exposed on the ground game though.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, when he started fighting ground dudes like with great ground game. You know, he started losing and losing successively.
Right.
Consistently too.
Right.
But you know, he was like a great striker. But you know, moving on though.